It's the 23rd of the 3rd, 2-4, and this is the week of the Australian Grand Prix, the third Grand Prix of the 2-4 season. News broke, however, this morning, much to the disappointment of F1 fans around the world, that Ollie Bearman won't be in the red car. For one, Spaniard Carlos Sainz Jr. has since recovered from his appendicitis surgery. He'll be in attendance in that red car this Sunday. But the FIA and the commercial rights holder will have questions to answer to as far as the health and well-being of these drivers. As Liberty Media seek to continue growing their top line, they understand that this is a function now more than ever of their ability to sandwich as many Grand Prix into a calendar year. But what about the downsides on the drivers and related parties? Physical and mental health. I mean, you only need to speak to engineers and pit crew to understand that to compete in F1 is to pay a health tax. Alex Albon similarly fell foul of appendicitis in 22. One-off circumstance or trend. And Liam Lawson, like Messrs Bearman, Pourchaire and Drogovic, has spoken about how frustrating it is to get a taste of F1, only to then be denied a permanent seat. Lawson said of his stint in the Toro Rosso last year that of course it gives you confidence. For every driver at this level has enough self-belief to be in F1. The New Zealander continues, it's difficult now though I've had a taste of it. I always imagined what it would be like to be in F1, but it's a different perspective now I've been in it. It's definitely more frustrating. And I mean, for these young drivers like a Liam, like a Teo, like a Felipe Drogovic, your heart has to go out to them, because these young drivers have done everything they can. They've ascended to the mountaintop, only for F1 and the powers that be to pull the rug out from underneath them. It's not fair. Hashtag free Andretti. And in other FIA-related news, the head of the regulatory body, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, has been exonerated of any wrongdoing, having been the subject of a 30-day investigation by the FIA Compliance Department on 2 counts. Firstly, by means of coercion, trying to ensure that the Las Vegas Grand Prix circuit was categorised by inspectors as unfit to race on. And for the avoidance of doubt, here's why that one's techie. Because Las Vegas was supposed to be the jewel in the crown. Into it, they had invested tens of millions. And so, if true, the allegation speaks to the ongoing fissure and friction between the regulatory body, the FIA, and the commercial rights holder, the FOM. Indeed, some might say that they're diametrically opposed. Chalk and cheese. And on the second count, that Mohammed bin Sulayem intervened at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix with a view to get Fernando Alonso's 10-second penalty overturned. Line stepping and boundary crossing. MBS says hold my beer. However, following a probe by the FIA's compliance officer and its 6-person ethics committee, it was announced on Wednesday that there was no evidence that Mohammed bin Sulayem had acted improperly. Of course there wasn't. The FIA indeed has released itself a statement saying that the ethics committee were unanimous in their determination that there was no evidence to substantiate the claims of interference. The President's complete cooperation, transparency and compliance throughout the investigation was greatly appreciated, and surely one must take them at their word. Try to. And in an interview with GP Racing, MBS has spoken his truth, saying that ultimately the President of the FIA is the one who signs off the homologation for the track. All tracks. That I supported it, but I could have said no. It was a big thing, he continues. If I'd have said no, it would have been disastrous for F1, but it would have been legal. Can you say power trip? And in other news, Oscar Piastri has given an interview to the Beyond the Grid podcast. In it, he spoke of Lewis Hamilton and the 2 times the two have come together on track. The Aussie being quick to assert that blame for both of those incidents rested with Lewis. He outlined just how magnanimous Lewis was afterwards, seeking him out, shaking his hand. Piastri says of that level of sports etiquette and respect that it's to be rated, admired even, rules of engagement, Bushido even, that you might not expect from all of the other drivers currently on the grid. And one couldn't possibly think about of whom he may be talking. And in the ever-revolving door that is key personnel in F1, Mercedes have bagged themselves 2 key acquisitions, both of whom herald from Scuderia Ferrari. One, Simone Resti, who's signed for Mercedes as Strategic Development Director, and one, Enrico Sampo, who's signed as Head of Performance Software Applications, whatever that means. And with Mercedes key personnel, head honcho Toto Wolff and James Allison both signing long-term contracts, surely for Mercedes now, the only way is up. And in the same vein, machinations out of Maranello couldn't even be more positive. The red team have been chirping for the rooftops to anybody that will listen that they see themselves closing the gap on the bulls that are red. And one Charles Leclerc only echoes these sentiments, saying that we are making small steps in the right direction. Charles continues, if I look back at the last 6 or 7 months, we are the ones making the most progress. We are closing the gap. And though that gap to Red Bull is quite big, I'm sure if we keep working as we are, that it's only a matter of time till we put Red Bull under some pressure. Here's hoping, mate. And speaking of the bulls that are red, speculation has never been more fervent than now around Adrian Newey potentially signing for Scuderia Ferrari. A German publication, Bild, reports that talks between Ferrari and Adrian Newey might be more advanced than you think. And once upon a time, Christian would have been devastated, but I'm not so sure anymore, because for weeks Christian Horner's been in the papers saying that Adrian Newey isn't the only one in that aero team, that he has a team of minions around him to whom some of the credit for that RB20 is due. Adrian Newey would not have liked that, nor did his wife, by the way, who shortly thereafter could be seen liking tweets intimating though encouraging Newey to make the move to Maranello. Mrs. Newey would be partial. But then if Horner goes, surely Max might too. And who'd replace him? Well, you'd be reminded that 51% owners of Red Bull, the Tyre Vidra family, still sponsor Alex Albon to this day. Who better than him then? Indeed, Albon's already a Red Bull man, loaned temporarily out to Williams. And to boot, Horner might be without an engine supplier too, as Ford apparently are exploring their options. As Ford CEO is demanding a complete and transparent explanation of all of Horner's alleged misconduct. And to boot, Walmart no less are considering removing Red Bull from its shelves. Oh, the humanity. This matters. Oh, and by the way, Albon, who represents Thailand, has already said on the Beyond the Grid podcast that he's considering his options outside of Williams for 25. Oh. And interestingly, ahead of the Australian Grand Prix, the FIA have released the list of active stewards. And one of those 4 will be a man who's never hesitated to speak his mind on all things Red Bull and Max Verstappen. His name is Johnny Herbert. Now this is techie because Herbert, along with Ted Kravitz, was one of the few Sky Sports broadcasters who's never pulled any punches when it's come to Red Bull and Max Verstappen. Indeed, as recently as this week, The Sun reported Herbert as saying that the Horner show is not good for F1, that post the allegations and everything that came with it, that the Red Bull team principal should step down. Oof, Max might need to be on his best behaviour here. But sometimes in F1 it can be sliding doors, because when one door of opportunity shuts, another one opens shortly thereafter. And petro giant Aramco might just be this for Verstappen et al. Because as rumour has it, the Saudi oil giants are chomping at the bit to enter into F1, potentially by acquisition. And Aston Martin, would you believe, may be their target most likely. Lest we forget that in November of 23, Lawrence Stroll sold a minority stake. Some say that his dwindling interest in F1 might not be unrelated to his son's underperformance. And since Aramco are Aston's title sponsor already, maybe conversations have started and are ongoing. And if money were an obstacle previously to acquiring Messrs Newey and Verstappen, were Aramco to acquire Aston Martin, so resplendent are Aramco with riches, that would be a barrier to entry no longer. Max Verstappen in the green ball, put that in your pipe and smoke it. And only a couple of weeks after International Women's Day, Susie Wolff has released a statement on her Instagram. Wolff says, I can confirm that I personally filed a criminal complaint. This was filed in French courts on the 4th of March in relation to statements made about me last December. There has not been any transparency or accountability in the relation to conduct of FIA personnel on this matter. I feel more than ever that it's important to stand up, call out improper behaviour and make sure that people are held to account. While some may think silence absolves them from responsibility, it does not. Spot the difference. The FIA's statement and Susie Wolff's both speak of transparency, accountability, improper behaviour. Susie's made a point to mirror, no weaponise their language. And I, for one, am here for it, because for the longest time at the regulatory body, there's been zero accountability, let's be honest. And that from those who hold the pen and police the billion-dollar sport that we all know and love. Oh, the humanity. No further questions, Your Honour.